Well, everybody, welcome to the podcast. This is the Worship Minute podcast coming to you from LA. And today, I'm so honored to have some wonderful people with me today on this podcast. I'd like to welcome Steve Bliss, who is a songwriter, worship leader, producer, longtime friend with whom I've had the privilege to produce 5 albums, at least
Yeah,
five
Wow.
and
albums,
right,
How about
right,
that?
right.
How about
Too
that?
many songs to remember.
and write so many songs we can't even remember.
Hmm.
And so I'm honored to have him here today. It's the grace of God that we're still alive on this planet.
Dear Jesus.
Amen, dear Jesus. And then also we have Michael Omartian.
How you
Michael
doing?
Omartian, I don't know you guys that don't know this man, but I have followed him for years. Michael, I'm one of your big fans, and
Well,
your
thank you.
songs, your productions are in
thank
my life. They're the part of the soundtrack of my life, literally.
That's cool. Thank you.
Michael is a three-time Grammy winner, 10 times nominated. Among his notable work is Christopher Cross's blockbuster album that we all loved, Arthur's Theme, The Best That You Can Do.
Yeah.
Works hard for the money, Donna Summer.
Yeah.
Come on now. And he's produced a myriad of artists, including Amy Grant, Roberta Flack, Michael Bolton, and so many more. And it's just, to me, a dream come true to talk to you.
Well,
The
thank you.
way I've got to kind of interface with you personally, believe it or not, was your wife spoke at our church 2 times.
Wow.
She
Oh
came
yeah.
2 times to speak to the women, and
Yeah.
I wanted to sneak in that women's event so bad, but it was just for women only.
Too many
And
hormones, brother.
yeah,
That's what
too much estrogen.
Yeah,
that's
that's
right,
right.
man. That's
Yeah,
right.
and
Yeah. I'm
but
with
my
you.
wife told me a lot. She really
Okay.
enjoyed
Good.
your wife, and
Awesome.
so it's really an honor to have you both.
Well,
Steve
thank
and
you.
I go way back
Yeah.
to the '80s, and we've done a
Wow.
lot of writing. We have a lot in common in terms of our love for the styles of music we love, and our approach to writing as well. And
Great.
the thing that I wanted to start talking about is, you've just released a project, Steve, and the Two Sticks project, which is amazing. I've been playing it for my friends, and they're just blown away by it.
Hmm.
And I can hear your touch, Michael, in this
Ah.
production.
Wow.
I can hear your style in it. I can hear your contribution. It's so wonderful. But the Two Sticks project, I want to ask first, what inspired it? What inspired it, Steve? What inspired you getting into this whole thing?
Well, for years, I mean, I came here to Nashville back in the early '90s. We got here at the same time,
Yeah.
and I really thought I was coming here to get involved in the music industry of some sort, and then eventually I got signed as a to a publishing deal, and I was writing country music and all kinds of stuff like that, and had stuff on records and film and television and stuff like that, and things were going good, but I went through some really hard times in my life, and everything kind of collapsed, and as a result of that collapse, slowly but surely, I had to figure some things out. And one of the things is that I had to prioritize because I went through a divorce with Cindy, as you knew Cindy well, and we had a really hard time, and I had to really step up and take care of my kids and be there for my kids. So. I ended up going to work for a friend of mine, a friend of ours, Bob Weil, and while I was doing that, I really wasn't doing music so much, I mean, I'd gotten away from it, and I went through cancer. I went through a whole bunch of really hard times, physical hard times, emotional hard times,
Yeah.
the death of my firstborn son,
Oh, yeah.
the death of my mom, I mean, there was a lot of really difficult things, and slowly but surely, I just kind of I let music go because I really wasn't doing anything, and I had been disappointed by not having the things happen in my life and musically that I thought I deserved, which was kind of funny because God really had to bring me to a new place. So, long story short, about 8 years ago, I was praying right around the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, and I felt like the Lord say to me, I want you to start writing. I'm going to give you the songs. And I had nothing. I had sold everything. I had no instruments. I had nothing to my name. And I literally said to the Lord, why? Like, why now? Like, I mean, I don't even have a musical instrument. What are we talking about? And I never heard like a response back. It was just like, I'm get ready. I'm going to start sending you the songs. I'm emailing them to you.
Right, right,
I'm going to
right.
download them, and they started coming in dreams. And I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I would have a full song playing in my head, like literally the music, and I and I thought, oh, the Lord's taking me back into the music industry, right? And I thought, oh, I'm going to call all my friends that I had written many songs with, and just kind of see about getting back into co-writing, and I'm gonna get back in. This is going to be it. And nobody, they all said, let's write. And then nobody would write. And so I was like, I don't get this. And the Lord was really just taking me through this place where He was going, this is about you and me. This isn't about that. What you imagined is not what this is about. This is about you and me. I created you to write for me. I created you to I gave you the talents that you have and the gifts that you have to use for me, not for the world or for the things of the world. And so it was a process of really kind of deconstructing the ideas that I had in my head, and then just nobody would write, and I was like, well, okay, I don't know if I can get back on this horse, because this is like, I mean, I hadn't written in years, and I had no instruments, and so through a process of circumstances that were really divine, I got a guitar back that I had sold years and years before, that I'd written over 500 songs on,
Wow.
which was really weird. And I had the guitar back, and I had been in a car head-on collision in 2013, and I broke my wrist, and I broke three ribs, and my left hand didn't work very well at all. And so I kind of like, that was kind of the process of let go of it all, because it's like, obviously, I'm done with music,
Right.
and I got the guitar back, and man, within like a short amount of time, I was like, oh my gosh, I can play.
Yeah.
I think I can play it. And then I was like, but I'm so rusty, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't done anything for so long, and so. I just began to really hunker down into the idea, what do you want me to write? What, okay, what are we writing? And what is this about? And it was just a process to just keep writing, just keep writing, just keep writing. And I kept writing and writing and writing and writing, and I built up and built up and built up. And I had, oh, probably well over a couple hundred. I mean, I would
You
say over,
serious?
well, yeah, oh yeah, lots. I mean, I
And this is over a period
This
of
is
what,
for
like?
this is started about eight and a half years ago,
Okay.
and then but I was just constantly writing. I was constantly churning, and my phone is like a joke. I mean, it's just
Wow.
it's thousands of ideas and hundreds of lyrics,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
so what happened was is I had gotten to the point where I was going to I was can really I wanted to make a worship project. I wanted to make something that was I wanted to give. I felt like it was time to get back and give it and put it out there. And I'd gone through this process of thinking, well, do I have other people sing the songs? And I was really going through a lot of things because I was so insecure. I mean, I was
Mm.
completely insecure. I had no
Mm.
confidence at
Wow.
all. I mean, I could sit in my room all
Yeah.
by myself and me and do it, but I
Right.
had no real confidence. And one day, now Michael and I had never talked music
No.
ever, ever. I'd known him forever and never talked music. Baseball, life, God, those were our baseball, life, and God. But music was never a part of the conversation. Although all the people that we hung around with were all music people,
Yeah.
and he had all worked with, but I had never been a part of that process. So
Yeah.
I just kind of like, I valued the friendship, so I never wanted to get into that, and thought, it's not mine to step in there. And one day I was driving, we were having lunch over
Yeah.
at
J.
over
Alexander's.
J. Alexander's, and I'm
Yeah.
driving over there, and the Lord says to me, I want you to ask Michael if he will listen to your songs and tell you whether or not what he thinks of your voice. And I'm like, no way, not him. Like, I'll go talk to somebody else, but I'm not talking to him.
I can
And
imagine.
so
Yeah.
we're literally at lunch, and we had parked. Michael and I had parked over on one side, and we were with Tom Hemby, and Tom Hemby had parked on the other side. And Tom goes to his car, and we're walking the car, and I'm like nervous. And I said, Michael, I just want to ask you a question. Do you think I want to do this thing, and I want to record some songs, and I'm wondering if how important it is to have like a really important, a big, professional, super sounding voice. And he looks at me, he goes like, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I want to record a worship project. And he went, what? Like, what? Like he was completely baffled that was even saying that. And he said, he goes, well, I tell you what, why don't you come over to my house and bring me your songs and I'll listen and I'll tell you what I think. And we're literally sitting in the very space. And I brought him over, and boy, I mean, you talk about nervous as it gets.
Wow.
And it's just me playing acoustic guitar
Right.
and singing songs,
Right.
and singing ideas. And we sat here, and he kept like he'd finish the song, and he'd look at me, and he'd finish the song, and look at me, and he's going, "Dude." I mean, that's what he would go,
Really?
"Dude." And he so I finished it and I said, I asked him what he thought, and he goes like these songs wouldn't be the same without your voice,
That's right.
right? You have a unique voice. And I was like going, well, I'm so insecure, man. I mean it's a long time. And so he goes, it was something to the effect of like, uh uh, he goes, do you want my basically do you want would you like my help, right? Would you like me to be involved? And I go, well, and I'm like, whoa, you mean like you want to play piano on something or something like that? And he goes,
That
no,
is so
bro.
funny.
He goes like, no, bro. I'm talking about like
Yeah.
producing it, like
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
involved with you in that level. And
Yeah.
I was like, I almost started crying. I mean,
Mhm.
it freaked me out.
Mm.
And I said, well, sure. you know, I mean, I said, he goes, well, let me think about it, and so a few weeks went by and we talked about it, and he said, I want to do it.
Yeah.
And so then we went through the process of coming to what the songs were and putting that all together and began the journey. And he did all the charting and all that
Yeah.
stuff like that. Well, I mean, but he really was the guy who put me back on the horse. I mean, he gave me a confidence that I did not possess.
That is so
So that's
cool.
kind of like the
Yeah.
evolution of how it really came into existence. I mean,
Right.
that's how the project began.
Yeah.
Wow. So Michael, did you listen to a whole lot of songs and then help him cull them down to what you would consider the gems or
I think the first batch was maybe about 14 songs that I think he played for me.
yeah.
And as I went through each one, I went, this one's better than the last one.
Uh-huh.
This one's better than the one I just heard.
Yeah.
This one's even better than that one. This one's better than this. And and I meant it when I said, you can't separate the way your attitude is. It's like separating Bob Dylan from one of his songs. You
Yeah,
know what
I
I'm
hear you.
saying?
Yeah,
There's a
totally.
personality there. There's a
Yeah,
vibe that is
right.
so intrinsic to the validity of what you're hearing.
Right.
And I was aware of the fact that Steve had even said that one of his desires was to bring some outside voices into this to
Yeah.
combine on different songs. And as I listened to tunes, there were the really cool gruffy ones that Steve just was perfect for,
Yeah.
that you wouldn't want to change anything. But then there were some things that were melodically very conducive to a female voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was one song that him of Ascension that he wrote with a guy named Mike Whitaker that
Who Alan knows.
was very yeah, very much a hymn,
Yeah.
which would require someone with a very large range.
Yeah.
And that's when Ron Hemby came in.
Okay.
But my initial impression was, and you need to know, this is how long ago we did this, 3 years ago.
So yeah, 21. We started it in June.
That's the last
July of
album.
21.
That's the last album I produced,
Really?
and I did that on purpose because that's probably going to be the last album that I ever produce. That's yeah, because I've the commitment to it.
Yeah.
I have to really love what I'm hearing in order to do this, and I
Right.
really love what I heard.
Wow.
And also our friendship played into this too, because what I was really impressed with was, here's this talent, but he never came to me and said, hey, I've got all this talent, I need to be working with you. There was never any of that kind of a thing. And I was pleasantly surprised when I heard what he did, because we'd go to St. Louis all the time to go to Cardinal games, and we'd have all these subjects that everybody would talk about. There were usually four of us in the car. Steve would usually always drive. And we talk about everything from music to the Lord to the end times to you name it, we talk about it. And at no point did Steve ever allude to his creative side as far as I've got some songs or I've got some. He never talked about it. So it was shocking when I heard what I heard, because I went, you know, I know there's a time for everything.
Yeah.
But the humility that went along with all of this was part of what impressed me and still impresses me to this day about Steve, and the ability that he has, and how he just does not bark and scream about it. He just goes about his business, and it's right there.
Wow.
It's right there. And Steve sends me stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I woke up at 3:00 in the morning, listen to this thing, and I sit there and go, you got this all downloaded at one time? And he goes, yeah, I got this downloaded at one time. So he's right. 200 songs are nothing. Seriously, nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, they just keep coming. They just keep coming. And I believe, I call Steve the rabbi because he's so biblically knowledgeable, and I love where he's coming from. So I think that there's a wealth of information, spirituality. There's a wealth of knowledge of God. There's a wealth of knowledge of Jesus. There's a wealth of all of this. And you can tell, I mean, you know, this stuff can't be written by a 20-year-old. It just can't be.
Right.
It can't be. It has to be written by someone who's got wisdom, who's had life experience.
Yeah.
And that's what attracted me to this.
Wow. That is so neat to hear. And it's wonderful to hear that affirmation of Steve, because I've always thought very highly of his writing ability. I mean, when we were writing together, yeah, we were in the churning mode, and
Yeah.
a lot of the
We
songs
used
that we
to, we
wrote.
used to write. I had originally been the sound person at the church.
Yep.
God took me to Hope Chapel,
Yep.
raised me up at Hope Chapel, and
Yep.
I would originally been the sound person, and redesigned the sound system we had, and the whole thing. It was a lot of stuff. And Alan was on the worship team, and then I got this strange experience of being elected to become the worship leader with absolutely zero experience. And I went into the pastor and the staff, and I said, listen, I have to have somebody to help me. Okay, I'm just telling you. And they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to hire Alan as my full-time assistant. And I did.
Yeah.
And we not only became the best of friends, we wrote many songs, and boy, we carved out a lot of time before Jesus together. I mean, we've thundered into the throne room of God together, and been and really, you know, I mean, and we saw a lot of supernatural things together. We really did. We saw a lot of amazing things, but every week the pastor of the church, Zach, I would go down to him and I'd say, so what are you teaching on? And he'd tell me, and I'd go look at the verses, and maybe I'd get a song would come to me, or we would sit down together and we
Sure.
write and that we did that every week. It was like,
Yeah.
it's like Bach.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was like it
Every
was a
week.
part of the framework of what we did
Yeah.
and we came out, and some of the songs were okay, and some of them were just for that service, and
Right.
some of them lasted and became a part of the
Yeah.
fabric of Hope
Of the
Chapel
church.
at the time.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I mean that was what we did, and that's never left me. I mean, that's
Yeah.
never not been a part of
Yeah.
who I am.
Yeah, it was a great, unbelievably productive time.
Awesome.
Going back to the Two Sticks project, I have my favorite tracks, but I know you probably have yours, Michael. But I immediately, I love Judgment Day, love Unafraid, and Hymn of Ascension. When I heard those, I was like, oh my goodness.
Hmm.
And but the one thing that I saw in terms of the content of the songs, and I have the lyrics of some of them here, but Love Unafraid, they have this psalm quality, the
That's exactly
richness
right.
of kind of like David's writing, and the authenticity that's there, the rawness that's there of
Yeah.
the human experience in terms of you know the person's relationship to God, and their struggle and their trials and what they're going through. And one of the things that we loved about the Psalms, Steve and I, we always reflected on the fact that David was so real and authentic, right? He wasn't hiding anything about his feelings. He wasn't hiding anything about even his doubts, right?
Yeah.
Before God, and he just
Yeah.
laying them there. But he would always come through at the end of it with some kind of revelation about God. It's like God is answering him even as he's pouring out his heart. And in the bridge of Love Unafraid, where can I go? Where can I hide? Right?
Yeah.
You're living inside me. It's no longer me who's alive.
Amen.
I
Yeah.
love that line.
It's
Yeah.
deep.
It's deep.
And that comes out of
Yeah,
to me, Paul's greatest revelation, the
yeah,
greatest revelation of Paul the apostle to us and the body of Messiah as a whole, in my opinion, is that it's no longer I who live.
Yeah.
right.
But it's not a concept, it's an
Yeah.
actuality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's an actuality that by taking that into the mind and transferring it from being a thought or a concept into actuality is really what it's about. And that's what he's saying, is that he learned that when Jesus said, I and the Father will come and make our abode, will come and make our home inside of you, it wasn't just a nice thought and
No,
metaphor.
it was
It
real.
was actually a total reality that when we are born again, that's what he comes and does. And
yeah,
Paul learned that it was like, if he learned how to step back and let Jesus actually,
yep,
live,
yeah,
which is what he wants to do, then everything was boundless and limitless. And
yeah,
I think David understood a level of that in intimacy with God, that he
Absolutely.
understood that intimacy was like everything, that God, that's all God wanted.
yeah,
Just be
yeah,
intimate with me,
yeah.
and I'll be intimate with you, and I think that's where Paul that comes from, and that's why I said what I said in that piece, because I've been meditating and chewing on that idea and trying to really let that become a reality in my
Yeah.
life, not just a concept or a good Bible verse.
Yep.
That's really cool. I connected it to Psalm 139. Where can
Yeah,
I run?
sure.
Where can I hide?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
where
sure.
that's you
Sure,
know
absolutely.
That's
Right,
yeah.
true.
right. You saw my unformed substance
Yeah.
in my mother's womb
In my
long
Yeah.
before
mother's
I was
womb.
even
Yeah.
born.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, I mean that's all that, right? I mean, it's
yeah.
like God knows everything.
You can't run
You
away from
can't, there's nowhere you can go. You can
No,
try.
you can't hide.
Like David said, even if I go down into the depths of
the
the
depths of
earth,
the earth.
there you are.
Yeah,
Well, heck, what are you doing down here?
Yeah.
and with Judgment Day, the line that I really like in that song is, "Let the wailers wail, and the earth and sky shake. It's so visual because it's talking about the day of the Lord, and you think about when someone has died. If you go to Africa, you go to third world, and you start seeing a ceremony where there's something that's terrible has happened, and the wailers are there, right? And that's one thing, is that the women are shrieking and they're wailing,
Yeah.
and I just, that visual was
It's
so strong.
ancient.
What were you thinking about when you wrote that line? Let the
Well,
wailers
I
wail.
mean, I could see the idea that when
Yeah,
that day comes, that no one will have an
Yeah,
excuse.
yeah,
There will be no excuses like I didn't know you were coming. I didn't
yeah,
know this. Nobody ever told me that will not
yeah,
exist.
right.
And so that day when that day comes, there's going to be a lot of wailing.
yeah,
Mm,
There's
yeah,
going to be a lot of mourning over the
yeah,
reality that the woulda, coulda, shouldas, and I wish I had a known to, you know,
yeah,
yeah.
and and the grief and it, this day is coming, and like it or not, ready or not, here I come, and he's coming, and we're living in those days,
yeah,
and we're experiencing the madness of humanity, and the demonic,
yeah,
over onslaught is just
yeah,
unbelievable,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see how deceived people are.
yeah,
And
Yeah,
so when but that deception will only go so far,
yeah,
because when he comes, that deception's over,
yeah,
because he's here. And at
yeah.
that point, the whalers are going to wail, and
Mm-hmm.
the earth and the sky will
yeah,
shake,
yeah.
Yeah,
at the coming of the Lord. So,
yeah,
An interesting aside
yeah,
was when we were running that song down,
yeah.
yeah.
our engineer at the
Oh,
studio that we were at,
oh yeah.
his countenance, our engineer, his countenance suddenly changed, and he got really serious.
Yeah. Michael
And
Latanzi.
yeah, and when Steve was running the song lyrically, because the way it was set up, Steve was standing in front of the console with a microphone, and Mike, the engineer, was right behind him, and we were out in the room. And Steve told me that he just said, "I need to talk to you," to
He
Steve.
did.
I need to,
Yeah, he did. He said,
I need to talk to
he
you.
goes, this song, he goes,
Yeah,
I'm kind of scared.
yeah,
Wow,
He goes, I mean,
wow.
I don't know what to, this
yeah.
song is really
So
I mean, and I'm talking about, all we were playing is me playing it on acoustic guitar,
Yeah,
and everybody listening to it, and then beginning to
and you
conceptualize it.
can see
right,
he's just getting,
And
yeah,
they all go out into the studio, and he's like shaking,
yeah.
like he's
wow,
freaked out.
And he spent a lot of hours with Steve after we
Yeah,
were
he did.
gone talking about the Lord.
wow.
And that's what I feel is the power. I,
Yeah,
I know you might get into this at some point, but I feel like I I don't like to call it Christian music, whatever you call it, Christian music, whatever. I
yeah. I was
think
gonna.
there's so much fluff out there
Yeah,
that
yeah,
doesn't really meet any deep place in someone's soul or gut.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think sometimes we need to get real. We need
yeah,
to, we need to, I feel that way about sometimes when I listen to sermons that are being preached and I'm going, they don't have anything to work. These sermons that I'm hearing have nothing to do with where we're at today. Nobody's preparing anybody for where we're at today. And what I like about Steve's approach is I'm trying to prepare you for where we're at today.
today. Yeah,
And when you listen to the lyrics and you listen to the thing, and you're right, I think Love Unafraid is probably in my top two or three favorite songs like yours. Judgment Day knocked me right between the eyes. And what I love about Judgment Day and the greatest story ever told is when it breaks into those middle sections where the
yeah.
choir comes in, and
Oh,
I want to jump off
let
my
your fire
seat.
fall.
It
Yeah,
just moves you.
yeah,
And to me, that doesn't come from the pen of someone who doesn't have a deep relationship with the Father. It
yeah,
just doesn't.
yeah,
It doesn't. And I think where we're at today is that 7 or 8 people get together and say, let's write a worship song. 7 or 8 people, let's
Yeah,
write a worship song.
I know.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. These are my 2 lyrics. These are my 3 lyrics. These are my 4 lyrics. And
Incubator,
you go,
right?
where's the personal experience out of any of this stuff? And
Yeah,
so Steve has lived it. Like I said, and the reason why I think David is a great analogy, because David was the young warrior and then he was the gray beard. He
yeah.
transitioned from the guy who went and killed Goliath to suddenly having a beard and sitting in a
I was
position
young,
of
but
when
now I'm old.
now I'm old. And there was a real understanding of where I am in my life. And so that's where some of these beautiful psalms come from someone who's walked with God for a long time. And so that's what attracted me to, first of all, what surprised me, because I knew Steve was talented because I'd heard this from other people, but he never said anything about it. But when I heard these songs, I went, these are songs written by someone who's a songwriter that understands how to craft a song and
Yeah.
move you from
Yes.
a verse to a chorus to a bridge,
Yeah.
move you throughout, and satisfy you when it's done.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that got off the subject of what we're talking about, but
No, no, it's actually you're dead on. In fact, I'm going to bring it up again as far as the current state of worship music and all that. But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And these songs kind of hit me. I remember first hearing your initial drafts, your initial first mixes. I think it was December 2021 that you sent me them, Steve. I was just yeah, I was blown away. I was just like, oh yeah, this is it, And I was, you know, in terms of technically as a musician, as a worship leader, I was analyzing them, the way they were put together, but more solidly, you think about the content. You think about what is this song saying and where is it taking me from point A to point Z, and it was all there,
yeah,
every last track, and so I was so blessed. I mean, Hymn of Ascension. 2 songs come to mind. I mean, how beautiful are your thoughts to me, right? My
yep,
mind couldn't never comprehend Psalm 139:17, right? How beautiful are your thoughts to me, O Lord, And great are the works of your hand, O God. When it modulates, in verse 3, Psalm 92, verse 5. I mean, it's all through here that I'm thinking of Psalms as
yeah,
he's going through. I'm thinking, oh, that's Psalm
yeah,
this, that's Psalm that. David
yeah,
said that,
yeah,
Well,
and
that song was written. Brad Stiles was the third writer on that, and Brad was doing a project, and Mike was producing some stuff on him, and we got together and we kind of carved out the melody, and I went home and sat with the lyric and lyrically sat, and then Brad came over and we finished the lyric together, but I had conceptualized the idea of it ascending, this ascension, like from the depths of despair and brokenness, and then God's hand of love and grace and mercy raising me up towards the place where at this place of euphoria,
yeah,
right? And in the presence of God, and that's so I wanted this song, I wanted this thing to climb, right? That's why I mean, I didn't see any other fitting name for it than the
right,
Hymn of Ascension,
right,
because it sounded like a hymn, and I want it climbed. It was like each stanza was like another rung up the ladder
yeah,
to into the presence of God. That was the whole idea behind
yeah.
it.
it's such a beautiful song, and
It's pretty,
you
isn't
know,
it?
uh, it's really. I mean, I performed it. I just performed it a few times, and
Oh wow.
and one of the things that I thought of, I felt like it ended too early, for me. For me,
Yeah,
I
I
mean, in a
get it.
live performance,
Yeah.
I actually extended that bridge tagline.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
sure.
Well, it
Oh,
is short.
let me rise.
Yeah,
See
yeah.
through your eyes.
Yeah,
Adding
yeah.
that at the end in a
Yeah.
live situation,
Uh-huh.
I thought that's what I'd
Well, it
want to
is
do.
short. I mean, it's
Yeah,
really just a train of thought, right? I
I
mean,
know,
it's really
right,
not
right.
intended to be like this
Yeah,
long.
Yeah.
It's not written in a typical song. It's more
No,
hymn-like,
no,
it's him. It's a him.
right. It's a
Yeah.
hymn, right? No, it's great. What are your thoughts on Love Unafraid? What was that song is just when I think of Love Unafraid, I thought you're capturing the believer's assurance in the presence of his God, in the presence of his
Yeah.
God. He's not terrorized because, Jesus has satisfied. He's appeased God of the wrath of God, and so the believer now, his assurance of being with God and being at peace with Him is full,
Yeah.
and he can be in the presence of God unafraid.
Hmm.
Right? Is that what you're
Yeah.
trying to picture?
Well, the interesting thing about this song is that I
Yeah.
literally wrote this song on my back on my bed, in the dark. I literally was. I mean, I was in a place of prayer. I mean, I really, and I was just strumming the guitar, and the words started coming to me. Your love for me is, I mean, it was just like, it just felt like I was just a conversation I was having with God, and I just happened to capture it because I recorded it. And I just captured it, and it was just a conversation. It really was not. I mean, it wasn't like I was really trying to write a song, but it evolved like a song, And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. I like that." And when I listened to it back, and I kind of tweaked it a bit and perfected it, but it was literally written in the dark, and it was an intimate, very intimate thing about, I can come before you, and no matter where I've been, and because I've sinned a lot, unfortunately, as a believer. I've broken. I've when I look back and I think about my life as a believer and knowing what I know and where God has taken me, and I go like, how did I get off track like this? Like where did I go? And the Lord has really, He's shown me a love that is like nothing I've ever known, really. And being Jewish on top of that, the minors and all that stuff, and the way that it's written, and then Omar playing the duduk. He's got the duduk right behind us
Yeah, I
right
was
here.
going to talk about that instrument that starts the song off.
Yeah, man. Where is there, man? I'm gonna get it for you, man. This is it. It's
It's
beautiful.
it's it's an Armenian instrument that's about 2,600 years old.
It's
It's called a duduk,
it's what is it?
and it was I don't. It's one of them.
It's one
It's
of
a
them, but
short
it's
one.
like,
It's just this with a mouthpiece,
yeah.
and it's like just a
Oh,
pentatonic scale, and you have to get them done in certain
he's
keys.
got all these
This is a
crazy.
bass. This is one that's a bass instrument, and I just it was they were made in Armenia. I had to wait about 8 months for each one to be made, but I was always fascinated with it because as a child I remember hearing that instrument played, and it was usually played with a modal note, one note, a tonic note, and someone would be playing a melody against the note in a very echoey room, and it would give you this unbelievably, I don't know how to describe it, and I've always wanted to be able to play it. And I have some high ceilings upstairs in my house, so I'd go in there and I just play it and have it echo around, and it's a pretty instrument.
Well, and
Yeah,
so there was a song that Paul McCartney did on
yes,
his record
yeah,
"Chaos and Creation in the
yeah,
Backyard,"
yeah,
Wow.
and it was this really
yeah,
gutty
yeah,
song like nothing I'd ever heard him
yeah.
write, and he had the
Kasparian,
solo, and it was a duduk,
yeah,
and I was like, "What is that instrument?" My God! I mean, this is years ago. This is like back in
yeah,
2004,
yeah.
2005, and so when I told him, I said, "I'd really like to have like a duduk." He goes over, he gets one, and I go like, "What?" He goes, "I play this," and so he
Wow.
when he played it at the beginning, he sat in here. We were just playing around with it, and he's playing it, and I'm like going, oh yeah, that's right. This is what's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
It it is so it evokes such a visual, uh, kind of like exotic, kind of
Yeah,
like otherworldly sense that
yeah,
that
yeah,
is just
yeah,
beautiful.
100%, and Middle
Yeah,
Eastern, like, I
Middle
mean,
Eastern. Yeah, yeah. It just it does that. And I just love that song. I think it
yeah.
it really
I think it's
captures.
pretty too. It's one of my favorites, and I always like a song that's got a half diminished chords or
Oh
minor
yeah,
seven flat fives.
Well,
It's
yeah.
just
I'm half diminished.
no,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Not diminished.
Minor seven flat fives are
I
beautiful chords, man. I'm
yeah,
telling you.
I had
And
a
it
good.
has it in that bridge, man, or the chorus, and
Oh,
it just makes you go, yeah, there it is, there it
there
is,
it
there's
is.
the chord,
Yeah,
there's the
yeah,
chord, yeah.
yeah. It's just, but the lyrics on top of that arrangement just
Oh, it's
are all
amazing,
just. Yeah, it's amazing.
amazing,
Absolutely amazing.
very satisfying.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his string stuff on there too is
Oh,
beautiful. I
thank
mean,
you.
the
Yeah. Oh yeah.
arrangement is just
Oh,
like is fantastic.
just perfect. Perfect. Yeah. And again, just a tour de force, in my opinion. You know, in terms of the project, in terms of the context, in terms of the depth. Uh, and I think you've answered some. I had some questions about the production. In terms of your approach to producing them, you've given some of those things, but what was your what was in your mind in terms of the songs, in terms of your approach to producing
Well,
them?
a lot of it had to do with what Steve heard. I mean,
Yeah,
there's quite a bit. The component of it was, yeah, I would bring something to the table, but by the same token,
yeah,
Steve had kind of a sound in his mind.
yeah.
Hence, we cut everything with a 5-piece rhythm section, two
Okay.
guitar players, bass
Yeah,
player,
yeah.
drummer, and myself. And we would actually do a lot of the overdubs between takes. I mean,
Okay.
we'd cut the track and right away put some parts on top that would embellish it. But it was never without Steve's thinking, well, I think this could use this or this could use that. So I think that it's kind of wild because I think as a producer, my first task is to make sure that it's true to the artist and what they're doing. And so you're not going to you don't want Steve to become a country singer. So you do things that are like what he does. And a lot of producers try to be a little overbearing. It's got to be this way or that way. I've never operated that way. It's got to be true to the song. And I think that there was a bit of that. We had already decided that Middle Eastern sensibilities.
We wanted
Right.
some Jewish
Yeah, we
sentiment.
wanted like King of Kings and some
Right.
of the other stuff. Even
Right.
Greatest Story Ever Told, the solo on Greatest Ever Story Ever Told has that Middle Eastern scales and the guitar solos and stuff. We
Yeah.
wanted to be very true to the vibe of that part of the world, and it seemed to be very fitting. And I love that kind of stuff. To be honest with you, I'm partial to that anyway. I love those scales. Yeah,
It works so well. I think it works
good.
so well, and gives it I don't know an edge. I feel in just how it's put together, and how it sounds, how it's appealing to the ear.
Yeah. Well, I like that. That makes me happy. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It's just superb. The
It,
next, yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say every step when we have the background vocals come in,
Yeah,
the reactions were interesting because we had quite a few of the songs on here involved like a group of 6 or 7 people, and they were just so into weren't they? They were
Yeah,
just really
it
into it,
was
man.
pretty well.
They were
The vocal
enjoying it.
arrangements that he did for this were
Well, I
spectacular.
appreciate that, but I
Well,
mean, it.
but I mean, I think that it was intriguing to them. I mean, because it was something different than what they normally did.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
but the songs
It
did.
matched
But
it.
the songs have to
Yeah,
be
right.
different in
Yeah.
order for the vocal arrangement to
They
be
would sit
different.
down literally like the singers would sit down and go, could you play that for me?
Yeah, play that again. I want to hear that
You
again.
just want to
Yeah,
listen
would
to
you
that.
please play that
Yeah,
again?
because they're like, this isn't like
We
anything we
don't do this
do.
kind of stuff. We don't
really.
do this kind of
Like,
stuff.
what is this? This is really
A little
unusual.
exotic, a little different. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. I love it. I love it so much.
I didn't mean to interrupt what you were
No, no,
about to
I
say.
was
Sorry, Al.
that was great. That was carrying on from what we were, the whole production elements
Yeah.
and by the way, for those who are listening, I'm going to be putting links to the Spotify links to the album
Okay.
in
Yeah,
in the
it's on all the
description.
digital platforms.
It's now
Um,
on all
it's on
Apple
Apple.
everywhere.
It's on iTunes or Apple Music, I guess is another new name of that. And it's all out there. You
The
know.
Love Unafraid is an Atmos mix too.
Yeah, yeah.
7. Yeah, that was mixed in
Actually,
Atmos.
they all are Atmos.
They all
They
are.
are.
All the ones that I'm releasing are
They're
Atmos.
all Atmos
Oh,
mixes.
that is really
I have
cool. So
not
for
put
someone,
Judgment Day up as Atmos yet because I have to
yeah.
wait. But they will let me. I had to wait a certain amount of time because I didn't do it
Okay.
at that
Yeah,
moment. But all the rest of them are
yeah,
released
yeah,
in Atmos as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
and that's
Wow.
cool because they sound really
They
cool
sound
in
really
Atmos.
cool, man.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
really cool to hear stuff coming from behind
Coming
you.
from.
You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was at Michael Whitaker's house. What is it? Uh, September, last September, and
oh yeah, he's
he's
got his
doing
whole Atmos thing, man.
Atmos studio there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
man.
He's serious, man. That
He
cat's
he
ridiculous.
is unbelievable.
He's ridiculous.
You're unbelievable, Mike
Yeah,
Whitaker.
you're ridiculous, brother.
He sure
Dude.
Dude is right.
Yeah, my
Dude,
flab.
dude. Everybody,
is.
Yeah. Yeah,
MB,
all
Chris
the
Rodriguez,
yeah,
And
all the
and
people
Jonathan
that played on
Shaw,
the record are just
Lonnie
some of the best.
Wilson, Mark
yeah,
Hill. I mean, it was just great.
yeah.
We had some great people.
That's
Yeah,
that's so
And the
awesome.
nice thing was that I had known all these guys
yeah,
for a long time. I mean, for a long time, a
yeah,
lot of them.
Mhm.
And they had done stuff for me years ago. I'd written with Chris
Yeah.
Rodriguez. I'd
yeah,
written a bunch of songs with Chris
yeah,
Rodriguez, and so it was a lot. It was familiar, man. We all it was all like it was a good hang, and everybody was just into it. They were all going along with it.
yeah,
They didn't know what they were getting into,
yeah.
but
They
they
enjoyed it.
enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Wow.
we cut everything in 3 days.
yeah, and they
In
were all
3 days?
worship leaders. Yeah,
Three days,
Unbelievable. That
four
is
tracks a day,
amazing.
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Four
The
tracks.
the overdubs took some time because
Yeah.
just life was going on,
Yeah,
Right.
and it took me a while to get this thing up because I mean I've gone through a lot of stuff with my dad.
yeah,
He's an old guy,
yeah,
97 and a half, heading to 98,
yeah.
and he's been through a lot of stuff over the last few years, so it's kind of went hand in hand, and I was going back and forth to St.
Yeah.
Louis a lot, and
You've been gone all last year.
it's been a
You've been
hard
gone all
thing.
last
So
year.
I just
Yeah.
I was so distracted by that, and I didn't get a chance to really get it up until
But
just recently.
this is a timeless project. It just this doesn't have a stamp of
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
now. You know what I'm saying?
No,
It's timeless.
I
So it doesn't
totally.
matter whether it comes out last year or this year or next year. It's kind of timeless. Yeah.
I agree, and I think it's one that could be a clinic for younger
Yeah.
writers,
Yeah.
younger musicians who are writing
I agree.
in this genre, in this vein.
I agree.
That leads me to the segue to the next thing I want to talk about. So, what are your thoughts about worship music and its current state? I mean, you alluded to it a little bit. Maybe Michael, you can speak to it, but the content of this album is so rich. From a biblical
Well,
standpoint, is
my
is it?
upbringing and your upbringing and Steve's upbringing, we
Yeah,
were at churches where worship music was focused on the holiness of God,
yeah,
the holiness of our Savior.
yeah.
And we didn't spend a whole lot of time about my feelings, how I
Mm,
feel about things.
yeah.
And I think that and chime in if you disagree or whatever, but I think that where we're at right now has a whole lot to do with our personal feelings
Hmm.
and how God accepts us no matter how our feelings and it's about me and how I relate and all this kind of stuff. It's that whole he gets us campaign. And
Oh,
we were
yeah,
talking about this
yeah,
yesterday. I'm going, well, he gets us, but do we get him?
yeah.
And the bottom line is I think we've taken the focus so much off of the magnificence and the
Mm,
holiness of God and
amen.
how do I how do I live in pleasing to the Father as opposed to what can he do for me? And I think that has a whole lot to do with where we just are as a culture
Mm,
because this kind of lyric that I hear today would have been summarily rejected 20 years ago. Like, what are you talking about? And yet it's become very mainstream. And the idea that it's kind of like when you're in Nashville you see these people that go, I have a 10 o'clock writing appointment. I have a 1 o'clock writing appointment. I got a 3 o'clock writing appointment. I'm going to write 5 songs today. I'm going, oh, yeah, great. They're going to all be great, I'm sure. And, it's just this whole thing. We can just write something. And I go, no, it better be inspired or don't bother writing. And I just feel like I don't, I'm not going to say what I'm about to say because it'll get back to somebody, but sometimes I'm not that sorrowful that we're late to church.
Oh, geez.
Funny.
Sometimes I'm not that bothered.
What do you
that
mean
we're-
by that?
I don't know. Sometimes I'm not that bothered.
We
But
don't
you know
want your
what's
pastor to hear that, right?
what's interesting? What's interesting, and I've had this conversation. You saying "Great is thy faithfulness" in the middle of all these modern things,
Yeah.
and watch the entire place light up.
Yeah.
And then you go back to these things, and you got to go, does anybody pay attention to what's happening here? So I don't have the highest regard. There's probably exceptions, but I think sometimes it becomes a little bit more of a show than it needs to be. It becomes a little bit more of a show
I
or a
could
performance.
I could kick in there
Okay.
because for me, what I look at it is I go, there's such a lack of understanding of God's holiness.
Yep.
Like, I mean, there's such a dearth of understanding when it comes to the idea that if he manifested himself in front of you right now,
Oh,
I mean, you look at all those places in the Bible where he shows up, and I mean, even when angels show up,
yeah,
they like people fall down as dead, right?
yeah,
And like I don't think anybody gets that.
no.
Like, I just don't think people really grasp the holiness of God. So in that, I think the only one who was designed, who has the ability to contain glory, is God.
Mhm,
Man was never meant to be exalted,
mhm.
never meant to be glorified. And I think, we become so full of ourselves and we imagine like we're doing a really good job, but we're drawing the attention to ourselves. It's more of a performance reality. And and I'm not pointing fingers. I don't want I'm not putting anybody down. Everybody's doing what they think they should do, but I think there needs to be a reevaluation. I think that the depth of lyrical content to me is so, I mean, and not to say that there aren't some good ones,
Yep.
there
Yeah.
are some good
Yeah.
ones, but I mean, it's a lot of shallow. I mean, a lot of
Mm.
just shallow. And Jesus is not my buddy. He's
No.
not my buddy. I mean, where does, I don't know where that all came in, but
I know.
we didn't come up through that, I mean, and I think the fear of the Lord is the beginning
Yeah.
of everything. It's not just
Boom.
wisdom, it's the fear of the Lord is the beginning of everything because it leads to the knowledge of God, and then out of that comes wisdom,
Boom.
and understanding. I mean,
Boom.
that's where all
Boom.
that comes from. And I think it's shallow. I think I watch all the I've looked at all the videos, the great, all the famous people right now, and I get why people are attracted to that because the culture has led to that. The culture has kind of bred that and
Mm-hmm.
and made that like that. Oh, well, this must be right, right? But that doesn't make it right.
Right.
You could be
Right.
so right that you're wrong.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Also, how many of the people that we know have made a name for themselves in the worship community and then left it to go on to
Yeah.
bigger and better things?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
that was just never, that was a stepping stone to something
Yeah.
else.
To something
Or,
else.
or the
Right.
disillusionment with uh, if I'm pursuing God in a very earthly way, or I'm not pursuing God on His terms, it's not surprising if I fall away. It just shouldn't surprise anybody. And what you said, which is the most important thing, is David said, "My goal in life is the fear of the Lord." That's
Mm.
everything to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can't even, if you say that
Right.
in a sermon, people go, "What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Fear of the Lord." Well, oh no, no, he's my buddy. No, you don't understand. We're not getting the right message about.
Yeah.
First of all, the fear of the Lord is everything from respect to understanding what happens, how grieved He is when we sin. It's grieving Him. And so there is a requirement, and I feel like we're just not requiring a whole lot, and therefore I think the church is shrinking because the requirement is so low. I mean, if I'm not willing to die for my faith, then I'm not. What's the point of any of this?
Right.
If I don't take it that seriously,
You know, I
what's
think
the point?
I think about people should read Deuteronomy.
Yeah. Oh.
Because Deuteronomy is Moses's last.
Yeah.
It's Moses's last stand. I mean, it's like, okay, we've been through all this for the last 40 years,
Yeah.
and really I've been through it for another 40 on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, here we are, and I'm gonna kind of lay out the story for you. And I'm calling you up to a higher place because God is so holy. You don't get it. You don't understand, and yet you're not gonna do it. You're
Yeah.
not
You're
going to
not
do it.
going to do it. Right.
You're not
Right.
going
You
to do
just
it.
tell them. You're not.
You
You
know,
don't.
and you're going to be convicted, but you're
You're
not
gonna.
going to do it.
You're gonna do it, and guess what? Yeah. Yeah. You're
And,
gonna.
and I think that's, I mean, I think that's kind of enough in that, it's not to put anybody down, man. I mean,
No.
I have,
No.
I think it's really
No.
important, because there's a lot of wonderful people out
No.
there and who really mean well, but they haven't dug deep enough. You know what I mean? They haven't let the drill bit go down and break through into the oil.
And there's people around them that know better.
Yeah,
They know better. And we are in such a negative space. If you go to YouTube or go to anything like that, everything is just so negative as far as everything. Everybody's out to run everybody down, and it's we need to do better at building each other up, but building each other up correctly,
mm,
in understanding the 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 sheer hell that's ahead of us in this world and where we're headed. It doesn't take a you don't have to be a brain surgeon to understand that the world is spinning in a very funny direction. And I think that we have to be prepared as believers that we're going to have to pay certain prices that are going to take more than knowing a couple of worship songs for. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And,
Yeah.
and,
No.
and I see it. I see
Yeah.
it every day. I see the price that people are already paying
Yeah.
for their faith. And I think that if we're serious, we better be ready for the arrows and slings.
you got to lay it down.
You got to lay
Yeah.
it
You got to
down.
lay it down.
Got to
You
lay it
know,
down.
we can kind of finish this part of it by
Yeah,
saying this. God didn't make us to be famous. He made us to make Him
that's
famous.
right. That's good.
Amen. 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 I totally. That really says it all right there. To make him famous, it's for his glory, and his glory alone, and he shares with glory with no one. And
That's right.
I
That's
totally
right.
agree with that. And in fact, even in Christ's prayer, his high priestly prayer in John 17, he's the one. He begins the work. He's the author, and he's the finisher, and he's the one who makes it so that we are united to him, and he in us, but it's all for his glory. I mean, it's all, Jesus is going to glorify the Father, and the Father is going to glorify Jesus, and we're going to be in him. It's in him that we find our satisfaction, right? So,
Let's just do it like the book says we're supposed to do it.
yeah, yeah.
Let's just follow the book.
Just follow the book. I often lament that the subjects and the themes of Scripture are not being taken on in worship. Like nobody writes laments anymore. Like they used to do in the, like in the priests used to do it.
Yeah.
In the monks used to do it. You had all these chants and laments, and they'd cite Scripture, but you don't hear about the reality of life that people go through tough things, right?
Bro.
And but all over the Psalms you see it, right?
Yeah.
And my Christian life is not just happy-go-lucky and
Oh, of
everything's
course not.
fine and beautiful all the time.
No, no, no,
No,
no.
there's times when you're
Of
down
course
in the dumps and
we have struggles. Yep, we
we have
sure do.
struggles. And the closing word, the two things I want to ask you is how would you advise up-and-coming songwriters and artists in this area of ministry, and what are you currently working on besides the release of this project? So,
You wanna?
who wants to go
Me?
first?
You go ahead.
Yeah, sure, Michael. Yeah.
What do you
How would you
what do you
advise?
think? What would be your advice to young, the next generation of songwriters, even the ones that exist now, and artists, and the way, because you of anybody should know how to speak to that. You're the
Well, it becomes more confusing as time goes on because priorities have changed.
Mhm.
Part of the reality of where we're at is the idea that you still have to earn some kind of a living doing what you're doing, right? I mean, you have to find some way in which to get something for what you're doing. And because of the way everything is structured, it's very tough because of of Pandora, Spotify, and all that kind of stuff. So I would say that, as I would say to anybody, if God has called you to this,
Mm-hmm.
then pursue it. But you better know that God has called you to this, that this is
Mm-hmm.
serious.
Right.
And I think for songwriters, I have been around so many who feel like volume is important. How
Mm-hmm.
many songs I write increases my ability to get it out to more people. And I'm going,
Right.
you know what? No, I do what Steve does. Listen to the
Mm-hmm.
Father,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're doing worship music. Listen to the Father, man. Let Him inspire you. If it's one song a month, let it be one song a month. Don't be in a hurry. Everybody's in a hurry. I'm 18 years old and I haven't made it yet. I haven't done this yet. I haven't done that yet. And I'm going, wow, what's the hurry? So I think that the world has really gotten its vice grips into to our young people, and I think that the only thing I can say is don't be in a hurry. Listen to the Father. Be inspired by what you do. And that's, to me, if those are the three things that you do, you're going to write some good songs. And that is if you have been called to do
Yes.
this.
Called. Yeah. I
If
like
you've been
that.
called. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt that you can be in a room with 8 people and you say one word, oh, yeah, you're one of our songwriters. And you walk away and go, oh, I just helped write a song. I gave one word. And you go, wait a minute, wait a minute. That's not the way it works.
Right.
And I really think that it's a very difficult thing to be doing. And I think I've never seen a time when there's more talented people, but opportunities are less than they
Yeah.
used to be.
Yeah.
I just think there's more talent, but opportunity isn't the same. It just isn't.
Those are words
And
of
my
wisdom.
advice to anybody, whether you're secular or spirit, whatever you're doing, is the same. Make sure you are doing what you are called to do. Period.
That's right.
Yeah. Make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
That's great.
Yeah.
I would say for me, it's if I if I'm talking to somebody who is a writer, I mean, even just in conversations with writers and stuff like that, my approach is very simple. It's all about intimacy. It's all
Yeah.
about my intimacy with God. It really is really nothing else. It's because I know that God will speak to me and give me whatever he wants me to have. I really do. But I've learned that, right? That's a lifetime. That's 40 years of walking with Jesus, right? And learning to listen to his voice and learning to and pressing in and going after and failing miserably and finding out how much God's love is like way beyond anything that I can
Yeah.
conceive of,
Yeah.
right? So and the brokenness that comes out of that and so, dig deep. I mean, I just say dig deep, man. Don't settle. I mean, don't settle. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so worthless to settle. And don't be content with just surfacey. God is holy.
Hmm.
I mean, and if you capture that in your understanding and begin to understand who it is that's living in you, that who it is that's living in you wants to live through you, right? He wants to live out. And that if we die to our, I mean, here again, follow the story, die to ourselves. I mean, put to death me. And that's not one time. That's not just a few times. That's like all day long, and to go after God and really know, why am I doing what I'm doing? I mean, it's that simple. I mean, you know, I mean, anybody can write a worship song. I really believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
I believe there's plenty of people who will never know
Yeah.
that are singing to Jesus alone. Is it okay for you to just sing to Jesus alone
Yeah.
and to write for
Yeah.
Jesus alone?
That's
Is
it.
it okay to just never be known?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you can come to that
Like
place,
what you just said. Is it okay for you to just to be never be known?
to never be known, and it's just you and God, because you're known.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
By him.
you're
Yeah.
known,
You're
and He
known.
knows you, and He
Yeah.
loves you, and how much I mean, like when I said, love unafraid, I mean, that's just one song. I mean, there's so many songs that I write, and it's just me and Him, and I mean, all I'm doing is say, okay, what do you want to say here?
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want? Give me the words, and I'll just sit and wait.
Yeah.
Those who wait,
Yeah.
those who wait. And it really is, that's the relationship, that's the way that I've developed. And I mean, it goes all the way back. I mean, you were, I knew nothing about what worship was about. Alan really taught me a
That's cool.
lot. Alan
That's
was the
cool.
guy who gave me
Yeah.
a
Right.
lot,
Yeah.
because
I'm
I
humbled to
knew
hear you.
nothing. I was
Mm,
a secular
mm,
rock and roll
Yeah.
funk
Yeah.
musician
Yeah.
mm,
who, was, popular in his own right in the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And then this crazy pastor says, God told me you're supposed to be the worship leader. And I'm like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? You don't
Yeah.
know what you're saying.
Yeah.
right.
And so I knew that I needed something that I didn't have, and I failed. I mean, I got pretty full of myself, and Alan was the guy that gave me so much, and
That's
I
cool.
I owe him so much,
That's
I'm
cool.
not
humbled.
just a debt of gratitude, but I mean,
Yeah.
my love and appreciation and respect from his is massive
That's
because
cool.
of what he gave me.
Yeah.
And I say, that turned everything around, and it took many years to turn
Mm,
a lot of things around for me, because I
mm,
was coming out of a worldly perspective, and really letting go and loving not the world and the things of the world. And that's the other thing. Love not the world or the things of the world.
Yeah.
For the one who
amen.
loves the world has not the love of the Father in him. I
Father.
mean, that's a tough verse.
It is.
Is.
That's a tough
It
verse.
is.
And if we're really going to serve Jesus to the fullest of our
Yeah.
ability, I
Yeah.
mean, we've got to
Gotta be.
hate the world.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we look at the world and we go, oh, I mean, there's so many wonderful things, but bro,
Yeah.
I mean, wait a minute, who's in charge of the world?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to give up.
Got
So,
to give it. Got to
That's.
give it up. And what I love about Jesus is that he enables us to do that
Yep.
yeah,
by resting in Him, by
yeah,
trusting in
that's
Him.
right.
You know, because he perfectly obeyed for us. He said,
That's right.
and so He is our strength. He is our life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's the secret, is like you realize, oh my goodness, He's there for me. His power is at work in me. I just need to rest. I need to go there. You
yeah,
You
know.
know, the
Yeah.
Proverbs 3:5, man. I'm telling you, trust in the Lord with
Yeah.
all your heart and lean on your own, not on your own.
Understanding.
Yeah. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He
Knowing
will
Him.
direct your paths. I can't
Yeah.
think of a verse in my life
Yeah.
that I have quoted more because I've had to stop and go,
Yeah.
stop,
Yeah.
stop. You're taking things on yourself.
mm,
Trust in the Lord.
mm,
He's the one that directs your
mm,
path. And I can't tell you how many times, even though I've been very blessed, how many times I've had to get knocked in the head and go, no, you're trying to do this on your own. You've
Hmm.
got this thing figured out. No, you don't. You don't have anything figured out.
Yeah.
God has it figured out.
Amen.
And that has been a life verse for me from as long as I can remember, even though I forgot because I'm getting old. But I mean, it's just one of those kind of things where you go, I have to keep being reminded, no. It's not on your steam.
Yes.
God hasn't worked out. It doesn't matter when, what, he'll figure it out. You just have to be available. And I think that that's what I would tell anybody. Just it's got to be in God's timing, man. All of it. All of it's got to be in God's timing.
Wow.
It really has to be. It has to be.
Yes.
Because you won't be happy unless it's in God's timing. And there are so many lessons to be learned in those horrible, long spaces where you're going, where are you, God? What's happening, man? Where are you?
It's a journey.
It is a journey.
It's a long journey.
And that's why I say sometimes when you're 20, don't
Yeah.
think so highly of what you're doing because you don't have the life experience of someone who's 60 or 70. Be patient. You're going to get better. Things are going to get better. You're going to get more intimate with God. You're going to do this. So I mean, we're all made of the same stuff. When we're 20 years old, we think we're pretty hot stuff. Oh yeah, I'm writing great stuff. And then you look back and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that when I was 20 years old. And how different it is.
I don't listen to anything I wrote.
No, I don't want to hear it. It's scary.
I don't even want to be reminded of it. It's like, what? I thought that was really
scary
good.
stuff. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, it's all in his timing.
In closing, is there anything you guys are working on currently that's different from this project, or no?
Well, I keep writing because
writing
I
all the
want to
time.
keep going. I mean, I believe, and I'm ready to record, so I just have to kind of see if he's ready to.
I'll be ready. That's all I want to do.
He's my man.
No,
no, I love him, and I love being I love. He, like I said, in the beginning, what he brought to me was something that I had let go of a long time ago and never even imagined ever coming back to. And so, but yeah, I mean, I'm writing a lot of
good stuff.
I think some of the best songs that I've ever written.
Good stuff.
We'll
get back in the studio.
We'll do it. We're gonna go back in.
I can't wait to hear more. And I'm telling you, Steve, I've been telling everybody about this project.
Good, thank you.
People that you know.
Thank you,
I've
bro.
been telling this is the best work of your life.
Yeah.
Well,
in my opinion.
I agree. It's really good.
I think it was definitely the stepping stone to what was to come.
Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Steve Bliss and Michael Omartian. I certainly did. And I want to encourage you to go out and get this album yourself. It's on all the digital platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, what have you. And recommend it to a bunch of friends. I think it's a project that's worthy of supporting. For me, it's more than just a project. It's an offering. So God bless you, and I hope to see you soon on the Worship Minute.